Howdy gamers! Today I'm going to talk about mechanics in games. With the release of Super Mario 3D All-Stars, I've been reliving my fondest childhood memories by playing Super Mario Sunshine all over again. After all this nostalgia and totally not for a school project, I thought it would be fun to break down a few of the game's mechanics and explain their affordances, actions, outcomes, and feedback, as well as explain how these translate to the game's state. This is by no means an exhaustive review of all of the mechanics in Super Mario Sunshine, just 5 mechanics I wanted to cover to meet the rubric because I thought they were interesting. For this video, I'll be referring to the controls for Super Mario Sunshine on the Nintendo Switch rather than the GameCube. Now, who's ready to get technical? Disclaimer: the definitions I present are relatively narrow, and these terms will be used differently by different game developers. Games are subjective, and these definitions are used to express specific ideas. Mechanic is a word you should never define, so of course I'm about to define it. For our purposes, mechanics will be defined as something that the player does that affects the game's state. Mechanics are comprised of affordance, action, outcome, also referred to as effect, and feedback. Affordance leads to action, action creates outcome, outcome is communicated through feedback, and feedback informs new affordances. All of these combined create the game's state. But what do all of these words mean? Affordance is how the player's potential actions are communicated to them, like a tutorial that says press A to jump. Action is what a player can do. Following our example, the action would be the player pressing the A button. Outcome is how the world reacts to the action or how the action affects the game's state. Pressing A causes the player character to jump. Feedback is the way the game communicates outcome to the player. This is usually done through a combination of visuals, audio, and tactical and camera feedback. The character's sprite performs a jumping animation. The player hears a sound effect. The camera gains altitude with the player's character, and the controller vibrates when the player lands. Finally, state is how all of these come together in the game at any given time. The player character is now sailing through the air and cannot jump until they reach the ground again. I'll also be using the term dynamics in this video, and for our purposes, that just refers to when a mechanic has a slightly different outcome based on specific circumstances. This may seem complicated now, but I'm sure I can clear it up with some examples. The mechanics I'll be going over in this video include jumping, diving, ground pounds, carrying objects, and spraying water. Let's begin with the most quintessential Mario mechanic. Jumping. Mario Jumpman Mario has been jumping since World 1-1. Believe it or not, this is actually one method of affordance. On the File Select screen of Super Mario Sunshine, the player is expected to already know that Mario can jump by pressing A or B, as made apparent by the method in which the player selects their file. This is a cultural affordance, in which the player is expected to understand specific mechanics of the game based on previous games in that series. Taking a look at Mario 64, the previous 3D Mario game before Sunshine, there's a tutorial dialogue explaining the basic mechanics, including jumping. Once the player gets into the game, the jumping mechanic is afforded more directly by speaking to Toadsworth, and some of the dynamics of this mechanic are afforded by speaking to the green toad. Through these affordances, the player learns what actions they can take to use this mechanic. They can press A or B for a standard jump, precisely press A or B while moving forward after landing to perform a triple jump, press A or B after quickly changing direction to perform a flip, or press A or B while spinning to perform a spin jump. Note that while these require slightly different inputs, they are all dynamics of the jump mechanic, rather than entirely separate mechanics. The outcome of these actions are, Mario gains altitude and cannot jump again until he touches the ground. Depending on which jump is executed, Mario can also gain more altitude in distance, or gain more altitude and drift to the ground slowly. Based on the outcome of the player's actions, there will be specific feedback. Mario will enter a jumping animation, make a specific noise, the camera will jerk up slightly to keep Mario in frame, and the controller will vibrate when Mario hits the ground, but only if you have vibration turned on. The noises and animations vary across different jumps. but the camera always follows Mario with a slight jerk to keep him in frame, and the controller always vibrates. Again, if you have that setting enabled. The specific audio feedback for different jumps is as follows. For a standard jump, Mario goes. For a triple jump, Mario goes. For a flip, Mario goes. And for a spin jump, Mario goes. All of these aspects of the jump mechanic come together to form the state Mario is in at a given point in time. When on the ground, Mario is able to jump, but after jumping, Mario has entered a new state and cannot jump again until he touches the ground. Let's move on to the dive mechanic. The dive mechanic, like many of the jump variations, first appeared in Mario 64. This means that it has the same cultural affordance that the jump mechanic has, being a mechanic introduced in one game and carried over to the next. I had trouble finding in-game affordances of the dive mechanic, however, the original GameCube version of Mario Sunshine came with an instruction manual with all the mechanics in it, which I would consider affordance. I know I said I'm using the Switch version, I just got a digital copy so I don't know if the game comes with old instruction manuals. The action taken by the player to perform a dive is moving and pressing the B button. Oh, wait, no, I mean the Y. The outcome of this action is that Mario is thrust forward and is unable to stop moving forward until he touches the ground or collides with something. The feedback for this mechanic is Mario enters the dive animation and we hear him go. There are also dust or water trails that emit from Mario as he slides, depending on if he slides on dry ground or wet ground. When Mario enters the diving/sliding state, the player cannot use FLUDD, and can either jump to exit the slide state, slide again to maintain momentum, wait until they collide with something or slow to a halt, or perform a ground pound to interrupt the slide state. Speaking of ground pounds, another holdover from Mario 64, the ground pound has the same cultural affordance as the jump and dive mechanics. It is also communicated to the player by speaking to the red toad. To perform a ground pound, the player presses ZL while in the air. The outcome of this action is Mario being thrust to the ground with great force. If a ground pound is performed above a wooden crate, the crate is broken. If it's performed above a manhole cover, Mario flips the cover and goes underground. The feedback of the ground pound is Mario entering the ground pound animation, this sound effect being played, and the controller vibrating and the camera shaking when Mario hits the ground. Mario must be airborne to enter the ground pound state. When Mario enters the ground pound state, he cannot do anything until he impacts the ground, including diving or using FLUDD. Now on to carrying objects. Yet another mechanic from Mario 64 brought into Mario Sunshine, the carrying mechanic has the same cultural affordance as the first three mechanics I've discussed. It's also hinted at to the player by FLUDD and explained in more detail in the instruction booklet I mentioned earlier. To pick up and carry an object, simply walk up to that object and, while not moving, press the Y button. The outcome of pressing Y in front of an object while standing still is Mario picking up that object. Like the jump mechanic, the carrying mechanic has dynamics based on player input. If the player is holding an object, they can stand still and press Y to make Mario drop the object. Alternatively, they can move forward or jump while pressing Y to have Mario throw the object in a specific direction. Also, while carrying an object, Mario can't perform certain mechanics like sliding or spraying water. The feedback of Mario carrying an object is Mario plays the pick up object or throw object animations. The object Mario is carrying can be seen in his hands. A sound effect plays when Mario picks up or throws the object, and Mario can be heard grunting when walking with the object. When Mario enters the carrying object state, Mario can't dive or use FLUDD. To exit this state, Mario must put down or throw the object he's carrying. Now on to the final mechanic, and the one Super Mario Sunshine is most famous for, the water spraying mechanic. Having been introduced in Super Mario Sunshine, the water spraying mechanic has some of the most in-depth affordance in the game, including a full tutorial video in which the mechanic is explained to the player, and tips from FLUDD about the mechanic. Some other affordances that the water spraying mechanic can be used are the water level and nozzle type indicators in the bottom right corner of the screen, and the presence of FLUDD on Mario's back. The action to use the water spraying mechanic is pressing the R or ZR buttons. The outcome of this action varies depending on which nozzle is currently equipped. This is another mechanic like jumping or carrying objects that has different dynamics, except rather than the mechanic changing based on player input, it changes based on the nozzle Mario has equipped. For the squirt nozzle, the outcome of this action is Mario spraying a jet of water that can clean graffiti or hurt enemies. For the hover nozzle, Mario is lifted into the air and can hover for a short time. For the rocket nozzle, Mario is propelled high into the sky. For the turbo nozzle, Mario is launched forward at high speeds. When FLUDD is empty, nothing really happens. The feedback for the water spray mechanic is Mario playing an animation specific to each nozzle, water being emitted from FLUDD, FLUDD's water level indicator decreasing and pulsing orange, yellow, and red, and a specific sound effect playing for each nozzle. Here's the different sound effects. When the player's tank is empty, Mario still performs a spraying animation, but FLUDD doesn't emit any water, and this sound effect plays. After entering the water spraying state, unless Mario is in a body of water, FLUDD's water level indicator will decrease. Depending on which nozzle is used, Mario might start moving. With the exception of the turbo nozzle, Mario will spray water for a set amount of time before R or ZR needs to be pressed down again to continue spraying. The water spraying state is exited by releasing R or ZR, waiting for the set amount of time to finish, or waiting for the water indicator to reach empty. That's it for my mechanics breakdown. I hope I didn't bore you to sleep, and that you learned something new.
Do the Mario, swing your arms from side to side. Come on, it's time to go. Do the Mario, take one step, and then again, let's do the Mario all together now. You got it. It's the Mario. Do the Mario, swing your arms from side to side. Come on, it's time to go. Do the Mario, take one step, and then again, let's do the Mario all together now. Come on now.